All right, welcome in. We are paddock side. We're track side. So paddock's out there. What are we doing? We're winter circle side here at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. Under the awning, my name's Louis Rabeau. This is the Horse Racing Happy Hours preview of the 32nd running of the Indiana Derby Grade 3 event here, of course, alongside the Grade 3 Indiana Oaks, hanging out with Barry Spears, as I do every weekend, usually on Fridays, but today in person, hanging out here in Shelbyville, the mayor of Shelbyville at this point. How are you, friend?
Doing well, man.
All right, well, good.
Doing well.
All right, Josh Rodriguez alongside. You know him from our Happy Hour Indiana series and, of course, the On the Wrong Lead podcast. Josh, thanks for making the trip.
Yep.
Hopefully people met you on Monday as well.
Yep. We had a good time here on Monday. Got to meet a lot of the people here at the racing office, so that was nice. And then, we had a bit of rain on the way down, but, hey, we made it here in one piece. So
that's exactly right. Frankly, it's one of those days, guys, where we see the rain and we see these kinds of conditions, Barry. We're watching them work the track right now. They're very clearly trying to get the water off of the track. Currently listed as sloppy. Turf course listed as good. They had the rail out this week so as to not run on the inside part of it. Where do you think we'll be at by the time we get to some of these later dirt stakes races, handicaps, etc.?
I think it's going to be fast. From the weather reports, it looks like the sun's going to come out. It's going to dry out a little bit. By the time the Indiana Derby, I think we might have a fast track.
I'm hoping so. Josh, this turf course here, you would like to play that turf hat trick sort of bet they have here, the $1 minimum. We're going to start in race 8 with our handicapping because that's when that bet starts. But, Josh, looks like the turf course is in great shape. Like I said, rail's been out all week. They've been ready for this day.
Yeah, and what was the first thing I told you on Monday? We were upstairs, we looked out, and I was like, wow, the turf course looks great.
It's great.
It's still looking good now. It looks like it can handle some water. And, it looks like the rain's basically stopped here. So, hopefully, we're going to keep a good track out here.
Yeah, they said 11 o'clock would be the stop time on the rain. It appears as though they were not lying, at least in this instance. We're watching you, meteorologists. We know your game. They're at Happy Hour, hanging out with you here, trackside Horseshoe, Indianapolis. Barry, Josh, and Louie. We're going to go through the late, what would be a pick 6, guys. There is no pick 6 on the card here at Horseshoe, Indianapolis, but we will be previewing that late pick 5 from races 9 through 13. But that turf pick 3 does start there in race 8. Josh, when you put together a turf pick 3, are you always looking for a single, or are you just trying to find out where that sequence hits best and then, hey, play for $1, $2, $3, whatever that base might be?
Yeah, I definitely – obviously, if you have a single, you should use it, right? But I kind of feel like at Indianapolis, especially, they have these big fields. Sometimes it's hard to find a single. I generally try not to go too wide in these sequences, especially on these higher base wagers. But, I do think that there's a good chance for some value in this spot. So,
all right, so let's get after it. You ready to do some handicapping, Barry?
Absolutely.
I definitely am as well. So we'll get into the handicapping here at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. And I want you to know that if you don't bet here normally, I have great news. The takeout rates here are very better friendly. 12% on those pick 5s, 15% on the pick 4s, the daily doubles, and the turf pick 3 itself. And under 22% on all of their bets across the board here. Alongside Kentucky Downs, I think they have the best just across the board sort of takeout rates in the country. So be looking at those pick 5s, look at the pick 4, and certainly at that turf pick 3 as well. The Indiana General Assembly distaff is in race 8. It's 8.5 furlongs, a mile and a 16th on the turf. Fillies and Mares 4 and up in this one, Josh. I'll go to you because I know this is a bet you like, and you also have a horse on top in here that Barry and I do not. In the 11 horse, you're going to the outside to start our handicapping here.
Yeah, and looking at the early scratches, it does look like there's 2 scratches in this race. So that does actually help the 11 a little bit. Not going to be breaking from the 11 post, going to be breaking from the 9 post, a little bit further inside. I think is going to help this horse. But I really like the 11 here on top. I will say that I thought this leg was pretty chalky. I think I'm basically using the top 3 choices in here in the 11, the 6, and the 7 in this spot. So I'm not really like sticking my neck out on here. But yeah, if I were to put it one horse on top, I think it's the 11 coming in here for George Arnold. You get Louis Saez aboard. And this is a horse that's been able to both been up close on the pace and has come from off of it. So Louis is going to have options here. Sometimes Louis takes a more aggressive approach, which I usually really like. So we'll kind of see what kind of trip he works out here. But it does look like a lot of the speed is drawn inside. Yes. So I think Louis is going to be able to get over to the rail, save a little bit of ground, even from that 9 post. And I think he's going to be able to make that one run and win here.
One of the headlines today, Barry, is the return of Umberto Rispoli. We've seen him once since the injury. It was last week at Ellis Park. Got a win on that day. He'll be in town for 4 of these races between handicaps and graded stakes here Charlene's Dream on top for you here. A little chalky for our guy Barry Spears, but hey, I think she's got a real shot.
Yeah, I'm kind of allergic to chalk, but I think in this instance, this race really lacks a lot of speed. Charlene's Dream should get the run of the race. I know the 4-horse Top has a lot of speed, but this horse is faster, and I think the pace is really going to be slow. That being said, everything lines up for Charlene's Dream to run a really good race. They have the class. You see, last time they lost to In Our Time, it was a really nice horse, probably over their heads in that race. Gets into this one, definitely a class relief sort of move, and I think that they'll get the run of the race. And,
by the way,
some
Josh,
horses with them.
Welcome in. This happens to us every single year. They ask us to start 11, and then they bring in a kid like Riker to make us look like absolute jerks. So we're going to take a quick pause for the national anthem.
Whose bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, work so gallantly stream, and the darkness red glare, the bombs bursting in air, through the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the hope of the brave.
All right, shout out to Riker getting us going today. We are off and running here at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. Talking through race 8 here, the General Assembly handicap here, of course, in race 8. A really interesting set of horses here. And look, 11 and 6 on top. I went to the 7 here, guys, because it's next to Barry's horse, which is much better. But me was here for Joe Sharp, just won the training title at Churchill Downs. Did Joe Sharp, and who won the riding title? His name is Irad Ortiz Jr. He's not here by accident. This one looked real good. Off the layoff last time out, November to June, should be really ready to go here. Second off of the layoff, and this kind of layoff, Joe Sharp hits at 35%. And so I'll be looking for Miwa to be on top for me in race 8 here. So 11 for Josh, 6 for me, and 7 for me, and 6 for Barry, in race 8 here at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. We're looking at the last 6 races on the card. The late pick 5 starts here, and again, a 12% takeout on the pick 5 here. A very, very playable sequence. Race 8 did start the all-turf pick 3. So if you're looking for another wager today, check that one out. $1 minimum on that wager, which I really like. Sometimes those $3 minimums catch up with you pretty quickly. Nice to have that dollar option. Barry, we're going to go to you first here in the Mary Holman George Memorial Handicap. And by the way, I wanted to pause there. Something we've talked about on the Happy Hour Indiana series is you've seen now Horseshoe move to this model, and I wonder if we won't see this more often around the country just to try to attract field sizes, going away from the black type of the listed stakes thing. If you're black type, slide into that handicap. By the HISA rules, you're allowed to be on Lasix for the race, and we're seeing that reflected in the field sizes here.
Yeah, it's a great thing. This kind of circumvents some of the nonsense that kind of happens in racing, where horses that probably should be on LASIK or need to run and run their best with it. This kind of circumvents that rule, and you'll see the bigger field sizes. It's great for everybody, great for racing here, great for the product, great for the bettors, great for everybody.
And great for the horses, right? That's exactly right. Mile to 16 on the dirt here, fillies and mares 3 and up. Essentially another distaff just on the dirt here, Barry. And you landed on with the 2 here, too much Kiki. I'm a little worried. Back-to-back 5-2, 7-2 horses for you here, buddy.
Yeah, man.
You feeling okay? We need a little proof of life from Barry Spears.
Where's the thermometer? But honestly, Too Much Kiki, I think, is one of the more likelier winners in this sequence, only because they're probably going to get a really good trip. There's a lot of speed on the outside, namely in the 11 Kapoor, who I flirted with. We talked about this race quite a bit last night, actually, putting on top. I think this horse is super fast and could actually blow this field out under the right circumstances. I just don't think it's today. They drew outside. They do have a lot of speed. There's other speeds in here, and it sets up really well for the too much Kiki.
Too much Kiki. Trained by Brett Calhoun, taking the blinkers off here. An interesting route to hear. Not something that he employs terribly often, but obviously, hey, chill out at the beginning of the race. You've got time to make up ground. You went to the aforementioned Kapoor here, the 11 horse. This is one that's never gone the 2 turns. And what's interesting is Barry doesn't love this horse here. He also doesn't care about turns at all. So that's kind of an interesting thing here. Was in the winning colors last time, but gets to jump back on Lasix here. I know that's an angle you care about as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we talked about a little bit yesterday on your show, is that if you look at the races the 11 has run, basically all of them, except for the last race that was off Lasix, they look like winning races to me here. You know, we see this all the time with these wet tracks, right? As they start to dry out, as they kind of start scraping some of the water out, they work it. These things turn into speedways. And now you're going to get the 11, who looks to be the speed of the speed on the outside. You know, Junior Alvarado in here for Bill Mott. I love the fact that Bill Mott's shipping this horse in over here. I think that means a lot. I'm not going to single, but if I were to have a single in any part in this late sequence, this 11 would be about as close as I could get to it.
Kapoor will break from the 11. You heard the case there. I'm going to a longer shot here, guys, with Clarita. Luis Saez gets them out for Phil Bauer. This is the Rigney Racing, folks, and this one is just a steadily improving type. Doesn't have to jump off Lasix here to get its $100,000 type of company. And frankly, is taking a pay cut to be here from the allowance level at Churchill Downs anyway. And so slides into this one, keeps Luis Saez from a mount that he had 2 back at Keeneland. This one was off from February until April, came back running again, has never been worse than 3rd place in any of her starts to this point. Daughter of gun runner, 4-year-old, only her 6th lifetime start. I think she makes a ton of sense in here. And if you're going to give me 8-1 on Luis Saez on a day like this, I'll absolutely take it. Yes, It's His is right next to her, Barry, the 6 horse here. And that's one that Josh really likes in here. You're leaving that one out of your tickets. What is it about Yes, It's His?
Honestly, I really don't think this horse is ready for this kind of competition. I know they're attracting Brad Cox and Irad, but they tried this horse a couple of times in similar spots, maybe a little bit tougher, but they didn't run well. Got a little boost last time, but I just don't think that they're going to have the punch to beat a horse like Too Much Kiki. I'm sure they're going to be around, but I left them out, just because of the value factor. 9-2 in the morning line, they're probably going to be bet down to somewhere near 2-1-ish. I don't want any part of that.
This horse in here, Yes, It Is, second in your handicapping, also second in mine. So obviously you and I have a very different opinion here. What do you like about Yes, It Is in this one?
I mean, we talked about it with the 11, the Lasix. The last 2 races that have been improved compared to some of these other spots, I think we're both on Lasix. This might just be a horse that needs Lasix. Obviously, Irad saw fit to ride here. We were talking before the show. Irad gave up an entire day at Saratoga to come to Indianapolis. I don't think he came to Indy to lose, so I do think this horse is live. And another thing I actually wanted to bring up about your 5, Clarita, if we do get more rain, which, we don't know what's going to happen and how this track's going to play, if you look at Clarita, you look at those Wet Tomlinson figures, huge number. This is a horse that's been bred for the slop, and the 1 slop try was a win. So that might be another angle to maybe move up a horse like the 5 Clarita, depending on how we kind of see the track play and evolve during the day.
Yeah, and I don't know that we're ever going to get 8-1 on that horse. So I think there's a world in which, Barry, by the way, whenever I see a horse like that, 8-1, who I know is really going to be 7-2, something like that. Mm-hmm. I'll go ahead and play the pick 3, start the race before that to try to get some value so that maybe people don't notice that horse because of the morning line until they get to play the pick 5 and then they throw that one in. Price drops. All of a sudden, everybody's playing that horse. Sometimes I feel like, I don't know if it's real. I can get value in the middle lane like that.
Well, that's the beauty of having rolling pick 3s, where you can go in and out of that race with that horse if they're your key horse. That's usually how I like to play. If I like a horse, I'm going to go up and down through that race on both ends of it to try to score.
I like the 7th race in here too. It's the sophomore Hoosiers. So it's 3-year-old fillies in that one. I like that race. I like the race before this one too. So I am going to play a pick 3 that singles Clarita at the very end as my last leg, just to try to get some value that way. Because I think I think that one starting the late pick 5 is going to get a lot of money, frankly. It should. I think it should. So not angry about that at all. This is the Horse Racing Happy Hours preview of Indiana Derby Day 32. Barry Spears, Josh Rodriguez alongside Louis Rebell. Thanks for hanging out with us under the awning here at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. The Mary Holman George Memorial is up next here. The race is number 10. Starts a late pick 4 here on the card today. It's another handicap, and we are still on the filly and mare side of, we're going on to race 10, Louis. That's the Schuster. Apologies. We're moving to the guys' side of things. I was thinking that's a little too many races for the ladies. You understand me? Once in a while, the guys need to get out of the track, Barry Spears.
They do.
Once in a while.
Once in a while.
Not all the time.
Never.
It's all right. Okay.
Never consecutively.
But this is a fun field as well. Listed stakes in this one. So we have the no Lasix rule for this one. 4 and up, 100,000 on the line, Josh. A mile and a 16th in here. In race 10, we all went to the same horse here in Encino. This makes me wonder if, once in a while you think about the late sequence, who do I have to beat to maximize my ticket? It's looking like Encino actually might be that horse in a weird way. Morning Line Maker has this one at 9-2. I don't see anything better than 5-2 on this horse.
That was a miss. This one's going to be 8-5.
I think that sounds more right. 5-2, 8-5 sounds not terribly off. Where are you at on Encino here? I think makes a ton of sense in this one.
Yeah, and obviously, right, this is a horse that won, I believe it was this race last year.
Yes.
And, follow that up with a nice effort over at Ellis. You see good time form figures for this horse. And, this is a race that doesn't look like it has much speed. And, I love speed. I bet speed on the turf, I bet speed on the dirt. I'll bet it on the synthetic. I don't care. And in race 10, I do think Encino is kind of your speed in this race. And it's probably got a really good chance to take these people wire to wire here. And I just think he's the best horse in this field.
I know we're all on top there with him, Barry. You went to the one horse on the inside in second spot with Vote No. We're getting to a theme here where these jockeys who are in from out of town we think are going to have a big impact on what happens here at Horseshoe, Indianapolis today. Luis Saez gets them out here, a guy that we've now mentioned 3 races in a row. What do you like about the Kelsey Danner training here?
There's a lot to like about this horse. If for not having Encino in this race, I think this horse would be ultra tough. And I'm going to keep an eye on this horse coming out of this race in particular because this horse ran pretty good races in tougher spots at Churchill. They draw the rail here, which is actually a good thing because it'll force Luis Saez to get him in the race. Not that he needed any forcing to do that anyway, but positioning is going to be really key in this race because I agree with Josh that this pace is not going to really be all that quick. Encino should control it the whole way. That's why we have him on top. But Vote No is going to be right there. And usually we might get a sort of merry-go-round race out of this. But I think Vote No is a really, really good opponent here. But I want this horse out of this race already, even before anything happens, than in this spot.
It's an interesting field for sure. Second spot for you, Josh. You went to a different spot with the 7 horse in here, who is the Brendan Walsh trainee, Clever Mischief. Man, Barry, you and I talked about this one last night as well. I think it's kind of an in-between for me between the 4 and the 7 here. The 4 horse in Noises Off has won here. Local connections that way. But Clever Mischief here, last seen at Churchill Downs, winning over a mile. A little bit more distance here, which actually I think will be just fine for this horse. Burgos gets them out here, a local guy as well. But Brendan Walsh ain't shipping for no reason.
No, definitely not. And, it's kind of like the same thing we said with Encino, right? Lack of pace in this race. There's a good chance Encino tries to steal it. I'll tell you what, the 7's definitely got some tactical speed. And I could see a place where maybe Burgos gets aggressive and maybe tries to steal it at a much, much bigger price, 15-1 on the morning line. And this is a horse that looks like the last 3 races continue to take a step forward here. So I like the fact the local jock's getting the board. Brendan Walsh isn't shipping for no reason. And I do think that pace-wise, this is a horse that's going to be, if not on the lead, just off of it. And I think that's where you're going to want to be this race.
I have Wadsworth in my handicapping. Neither of you have Wadsworth in yours. And I'm curious as to why. This is a horse that I thought did enough last time off the bench to show that this horse was going to be ready second in this form cycle. I think very clearly they were aiming for this spot with this one. You seem to think that maybe Godolphin's like, hey, let's try to get a listed stakes in this guy, yeah?
Yeah, I think that's the idea here is to make that attempt because this horse really hasn't run really good races until honestly the last one. but I really think that number is a little overinflated. I mean, they finished 2 lengths behind the leader in 5th and kind of wide. It didn't look like they ran that fast. I think the race itself was fairly fast. That's why they got that sort of number. But otherwise, this horse was struggling. Just didn't win an auction claim of 62,000 back in February. I don't think they can fit the bill here. I know they attract IRAD. They'll attract a lot of attention, get some money, but I'm against this horse in this spot.
What about Wadsworth for you?
If this was 2023, I'd probably be a little bit more interested.
That's the same thing I said.
Or even 2024, but I mean, this is a horse that hasn't won in quite a while.
Yeah,
Came back to Turfway in what looked like an impressive return after about a 450-day layoff there. And then the last 2 races has run fine. I do think that, to Barry's point, the speed figures, I think, are a little bit higher because of the other horses that were in that race, right? If we look at on a time form scale, those 2 races are definitely both inflated, I think, a little bit by the class that was in the rest of the race. But if you kind of look at the running lines, this is a horse that didn't really do much running, right? It was 7th basically that whole last race, ended up finishing 5th by 2 lengths. I mean, past 2 horses basically. So I wasn't as impressed visually with that. Then again, this is a big class drop here, so maybe maybe he might be able to steal this one here.
Barry, you have the 10 in your last spot here, 3rd spot in Baby Max. Other than the name Baby Max, why did you bet this one?
I think this horse has some upside.
I agree.
Running very well, seems to be improving as a 4-year-old. Just drew poorly here and caught on the outside, but I think they're going to become running late, probably at a pretty decent price. They're definitely going to fill up my tries and supers here.
You have Judge Davis 3rd in your handicapping here. Another local connection with Fernando de la Cruz. Obviously, Mike Maker runs horses everywhere, so I assume he's got a local connection here as well. But these 2 are a formidable pair. They win at 27% together here at Horseshoe. And overall, in a reasonably big sample size at 24%. So it's not as though Joe doesn't know how to ride Mike's horses. What do you make of this combination here? And why do you like Judge Davis? Or Fernando,
Well, tell me if you've heard the story before, right? Turf Sprinter, claimed by Mike Maker, going 2 turns. Obviously he claimed this horse back in 2025, and since that claim has only been running this horse around 2 turns. And I mean, the races look good. I mean, this is a horse that's worst finished 4th, and that was in the turf allowance at Churchill Downs, going a mile. I think that last race at Churchill Downs was an improvement. Maybe you question like, hey, well, Irad rode last time. Why is he not riding here? But I mean, you get Fernando de la Cruz, leading rider here. I don't think you really. Maybe there'd be less. If it was any other jock, maybe you have a little bit more questions. But Fernando rides for Mike Maker here all the time. So
always got to remember Mike Maker that he claimed a horse and won the Arlington Million not too far after that. So that's just
he can do it.
To show you
it's been done. That's right. We've seen it before. We've seen the story. Encino in this spot. Axel Concepcion's going to keep the mount here. Irad's here. Other people are here. That's very clearly a choice that they made. They want him on that horse. Yeah.
I think he knows this track very, very well. If you watch the racing here during the week, he dominates the activity with Joe Ramos and Fernando de la Cruz.
Especially on the biggest days.
Correct. And he's a big-time rider. He just hasn't, he's just waiting for his opportunity.
Well, and look, when you're on the Kentucky circuit, 12% is still good, man.
Right.
I mean, that's good. Field size, all that stuff, that's still very good.
When you factor in that he's not getting the best horses all the time, things like that, you got to make lemonade out of lemons sometimes, and he's doing it. I'm glad to see him here on this horse that Brad Cox saw he was fit to ride this one again. Should have no problems. He's a good rider.
Encino did win in the synthetic championships, the Prairie Bayou, in December back at Turfway Park, where that horse is a different horse, man. When he's at Turfway, he just freaking loves it. He dominates up there. 4 for 7 lifetime running at Turfway Park. I think we largely went through this field, but we didn't mention Balnikov, and I want to talk about that horse just because I don't think Phil D'Amato ships for no reason with this one. And so it's an interesting thing to see this horse up in this part of the world, but this one has been living at Keeneland, most recently running at Churchill Downs in the opening verse. That's a mile race, and Lagados was in that one, so I'm going to go ahead and not think about that finish. This is a horse that's 0 for 3 this year, 1 for 7 last year. We just passed the prime here.
I don't know about past the prime, but just not in a race that suits their ability. I think that's really it. They fit here class-wise for sure, no problem, but they're just not going to get the setup. I mean, you see the last race, they were outfinished by Laganos, which a lot of horses are, but they're a closer. Now they're in a race where they're up against the pace scenario completely. I just think they have no shot. To me, they should be like 50-1. And now I just put them in the winner's stand. So.
Appreciate it. Go ahead and bet Baldikov. You go ahead and slander that horse as well.
I just think this isn't the right distance for the horse. I think it's just too sharp for the horse.
Yeah.
I think he wants to go mile and a half, mile and a quarter, mile and a half. I just think it's a little sharp here, but old war horse here. 7 years old, running a lot of big races, and honestly, with the exception of one of these races, he hasn't really run a bad race in a while. So.
I'll put it this way: if this were a handicap, he'd be in my handicapping. Because I think with Lasix, he's a different horse.
Yeah. Yes.
And I do think medication-wise it's different. His last win was at Del Mar, mile and 3/8, as you mentioned, longer distance, but it was also with the medication. So I do wonder with him, just the unlucky nature of California condition books, that everything's a listed stakes or a black type, so you cannot do the Lasix thing there.
The conundrum is he's too good to face lesser horses.
Right.
And then he's not good enough to overtake.
And he doesn't qualify for a non-3.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
he's in the middle, and he has to run in spots like this a lot, just to kind of cash checks.
Let's go to the Oaks. Grade 3 Indiana Oaks will be race 11 today. Starts the late pick 3. He's Barry Spears. He's Josh Rodriguez. My name is Louis Rabeau. This is the Horse Racing Happy Hours preview of Indiana Derby 32. Appreciate everybody being with us today. No, I don't have smoke coming out of my ears. That's actually a hashtag of all things. So thanks for hanging out with us. We are trackside here under the awning in Horseshoe, Indianapolis. Indiana Oaks comes up a little light this year in numbers, but not in quality, guys. We'll have 5 runners today. Mizumi did scratch out to run in Iowa. She wins last night. So we at least know that if they were ducking anybody here, they would probably have been the second best horse, at least, that sort of thing. What did you make of Mizumi last night, though? Having to go last to first. I thought an interesting rally. She did something similar in the Summertime Oaks, except she was much closer to the pace. She felt pretty far back last night, and she really had to get shaken up to get going.
Yeah, it was a little concerning there for a minute. We were watching that race live, and I was like, man, Mizumi just dropped way back for a horse that's usually quite on the pace.
Yep.
I think they may have learned something about that horse last night, and I think she might want to go longer, like distance, like marathon distance type. She really got going and overtook that field late, but I wouldn't be surprised if they stretch that horse out after that kind of performance.
It's interesting to watch, Josh, because sometimes I see these Mizumi types in the Baffert barn, and I think if this horse were in anyone else's barn, under anyone else's care, this horse would be running 9 furlongs on the turf. I really think that. I think that's where she'll end up eventually. I just don't know that it'll be with Baffert. Now, the interesting part is this is really a homebred and a private purchase, and so I don't know how much that was bought for and all that kind of stuff for the Baffert team. So she might be $1 million private purchase, and I just don't know because this one didn't run through the auction ring. Interesting to watch her going forward, but I do think eventually a Justify turf kind of makes sense for her.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, I think last night is a good reason why live betting during a horse race would be very dangerous. Because as soon as that horse dropped anchor, if someone could, they'd be tossing money. It's like,
right,
every other horse to win, and that
get 2-1 on a 1-2 shot on the turn.
Careful what you wish for. The Grade 3 Indiana Oaks is, of course, for 3-year-old fillies. I did see a tweet last night that last year's Oaks winner, the Kentucky Oaks winner, won the Iowa Oaks last night as a 4-year-old.
Wow.
Super impressive. Get better social media teams. I'll say that. Grade 3, $200,000 on the line here, guys. We're going 8.5. So we'll start right there at the 8.5 furlong, 9 mile and a 16th marker. Josh, we're going to go horse by horse here. So we'll start with Star Actress on the inside, the one horse. If you were making the case for Star Actress, where would you go?
I really like this horse. I like the fact that Bill Mott's shipping in. I said that about another horse earlier on the card. Bill Mott doesn't have to ship this horse in here. I mean, he's got plenty of races. This horse has still got, this horse is showing a ton of ability. And honestly, you go back to that Ashland, finished third in that race. That was a great race.
That's the argument, the Ashland. How she ran to the Ashland is the argument. And I think it's interesting. If you take that short stretch at Keeneland, it's not dissimilar to here because this just isn't a long stretch here at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. And so when you hit, because if you look where that quarter pole is, it's on the turn, right? It's legitimately 3/4 of the way on the turn. And so to me, if you can run well in the Ashland, you got a shot here.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see her in this spot.
Yeah, for sure.
And you have her second in your handicap?
I do have her second. Yeah,
Okay.
I like her in this spot. I do think getting back to the dirt. I don't know what the plan was last time, putting her on the turf. But she ran second in that race,
Yep.
right? She didn't necessarily embarrass herself. And this is a horse that looks like she is improving. So maybe that was just some kind of.
Well, she's a Justify.
Yep.
And so sometimes you check out the other surfaces just to see, hey, maybe we do have a turf horse here. And like you said, frankly, didn't show her ass doing it. She's pretty good, right? And so like it's
And
might be a thing
honestly,
going forward.
with the moisture in the track, I like her even more just because those turf horses. I always feel like those turf horses, or with the turf pedigree, they tend to run pretty well on cuppier or muddier tracks. So
She did break her maiden on Good Go at Gulfstream Park, going the 2 turns before running in that Ashland, also over Good Go at Keeneland. So a little bit of moisture should not bother her here. Nala will break from the 2. It's the Brad Cox, Fernando de la Cruz combination. This is a very interesting horse to me personally. Breaks maiden last time here in a race they intended for the turf. Now, Brad Cox not afraid to watch a race, learn from a race, and put a horse right back in the same condition. Gets the same thing here. Obviously, LASIK's a question, but a daughter of Authentic, a big purchase, over $500,000 at the Keeneland September sale in 2024 for the Shadwell folks. Obviously, trying to get the graded stakes here. Well, you and I both like her here. Why do you like her?
There's a couple of reasons. I mean, she ran a pretty good race in that 7 furlong race. She lost back in April, and she was wide that day. Then comes back, stretches out wide again, and wins. That's tough to do. And stepping up into this company, although it's usually kind of tough, this race isn't loaded. I mean, Star Actress hasn't run a race as fast as this horse has, its fastest race. So you got to think somebody that's going to be forwardly placed might end up hanging around in a spot like this, especially if the track, with them scraping everything and sealing it and doing everything they do to it, it might speed it up a little. And a horse like Nala might end up hanging around for a piece of this.
I love that on this broadcast I look like I'm 4'11".
Because you are.
And I'm 5'10". I'm the most normal guy on the planet. And with these two jackasses, I'm just the shortest person ever. But hey, we move on to the 3-horse here, who, Josh, you have on top. This is Maximum Offer. This is Kenny McPeak. We've seen him in the winner's circle here many times at Horseshoe Indianapolis in the past. Luis Saez gets the mount. And I'm going to guess that the reason you like this horse is that she's going to be on the front here. And if anyone's going to go ahead and run this out, it might be a daughter of Maxfield. It could definitely be Luis Saez.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think just pace-wise, this is going to be your speed, I believe, in this spot. Gets a, obviously small field, and gets a good draw on the inside here. But the question is Lasix. This horse's 2 best races have been both on Lasix. Now, that Martha Washington she ran is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for me, because that was an off Lasix race, and she ran pretty well in that race. So, I'm hoping that, maybe it's just a little bit of unlucky in those non-LASIK races there, but I'm going to take a shot here. Interested to see what kind of price we get. We have 7-2 on the morning line. I have a feeling that this 5 is going to take all of the money, so I wouldn't be surprised if you get a little bit better of a price, but we'll kind of see what the price is.
I think she'll be right around 3-1, Barry, just because Baffert's horse has scratched out here in Mizumi. But Maximum Offer, not in your handicapping personally. Are you stunned if she wins today?
Not stunned, but minor surprise, because I think she's had her chances, and she's just seems to be inconsistent at this point. She ran a couple of nice numbers, but it's very spotty. She may be able to get to the lead here and control this pace, and that'll be way better for her. But I'm not willing to take that chance on a horse this inconsistent at a shorter price. You get 3-1. That's a little bit too short for a horse like this.
Kenny McPeak and Luis Saez do not team up very often, so it is interesting on these big days what we do get to see as far as those combinations. Barry, back to you, buddy. Benny's Pearl here, the 4-horse. Mario Gutierrez in to ride for Brian Lynch. Not in your top 3 either, but a daughter of Munnings here. Interesting to see some of those Munnings still out there. I usually think of Munnings mares when I think of breeding at this point, but should have the speed at least to stay up here. But this is one that's turned into a bit of a closer recently. What do you make of her here?
Yeah, the only hope they have is a complete pace meltdown. They would be picking up the pieces late, and it's quite possible. it's definitely on the radar. So if you're playing multis, I'm going to include this horse in
Okay.
there because strange things happen on big days, and this could melt down.
We're trying to be professional here. Oh, there it is. There it is. That's exactly right. Racing Rachel, of course. Appreciate her popping by the show. Look for us, by the way, on the simulcast race 3 later on today. 4-horse here, though, of course, is, Betty's Pearl, daughter of Munnings. I think a lot of what he said is the case here is that either the pace falls apart and she's able to pick it up, or we see the dimension we saw from her last time where she was actually a little bit closer to the pace.
Yeah, and once again, I've said this probably about 7 or 8 times today. Questions the Lasix again. This is the horse last race. If you took that figure in the vacuum, this horse looks great in this spot. But the last couple of races have all been Lasix, and this is going to be coming off Lasix here again. And those early races that were off Lasix, we're fine for a 2-year-old. It looked like a horse was progressing, but really took a step forward on the Lasix. So, interested to see how this horse runs first off Lasix, but this is a horse I'm going to be using.
Brian Lynch, of course, we think of him with turf, but hey, wins plenty on dirt as well. 23% winner on dirt. I think some of those stereotypes about the guys that come over from places like Ireland, Australia, whatever, we just go, oh, it's got to be turf. No, Brian's adjusted just fine to dirt racing in the United States. Of course, Prom Queen will be the favorite today, guys. Prom Queen, the Delta Squad, Brad Cox, Irad Ortiz Jr., of course, the winner of the Grade 2 Gulfstream Park Oaks. We have not seen that kind of performance from her since then. What did you make of her in this spot? I know you're going to try to beat her here.
Yeah, I'm against. I just don't like when I see a young horse like this take a step back and then take another step back. I think when a horse takes one step back, you can kind of cross the line. Obviously, we saw that in the Oaks. Cross the line through the Kentucky Oaks. Weird race. Comes out of that Oaks, looked to be, much the best horse in that race, and then just absolutely was flat that entire race. So I'm going to be against here, but we've seen Brad Cox take these horses that look like, hey, they're completely off form, and then next thing you know, bam, he gets them right back on form. So,
and to that point, this might be the spot for them with that. Hey, still a graded stakes. We still get $100,000 check if we win here, but get some confidence back into this horse. You and I both betting on that today.
Yeah, the company this horse has been keeping in every one of these races. A lot of the horses that finish behind this horse and in front of this horse would be 1 to 2 on the spot, including this horse. I don't see how they can beat her. She drew well. She's on the outside. She can time the horses inside. She lays over this field. I hate to say it, but she's going to win it like 1 to 2.
Okay. All right. Move on to the Derby field. Josh, again, his top pick in there is the 3-horse in Maximum Offer. Barry and I will both play the 5-horse in Prom Queen. The Derby itself is race 12 today. Grade 3 event, $300,000 on the line. 3-year-olds in that one, of course. And 2 scratches to mention, Bricklin, of course, and Desert Gate, who will run today in the Iowa Derby. So we are down to a field of 7 for this one, guys, but still a very interesting race because at this point, our money man is actually the morning line favorite. And will be interesting to see if this son of Mr. Money, a winner of this race previously, will stay in that spot. My guess is no chance. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But Lighter will break from the 1, Josh. And this is one of the local interests here. Broke Maiden and then tried optional claiming company down at Churchill over the mile. Will try 2 turns for the first time here. Son of Constitution, Saphir on the dam side. Plenty of good breeding here. Expensive purchase price. Rudy Per Se trying this one here. If you were making the case, what would you say about the 1?
Probably my biggest case would be, hey, hopefully it rains a little bit more and this horse gets an off track because we have seen those Constitutions definitely run very, very well on the off track. The 1 win was on the good track. We'll see. Like right now, I know they have it rated sloppy. You're saying that's probably going to be good, maybe even fast by the time the Derby's around. But I do think with that moisture in the track, it does move up a little bit a horse like the 1 Lighter.
Lighter, of course, like I said, a $400,000 purchase at the Keeneland September sale back in 2024. Lighter, best finish is what?
3rd or 4th.
Okay.
I think this horse has a little bit of upside. There's quite a bit of speed here, so there should be something to run into. Not bad for our local connections. Tyler Gaff rode this horse last time. tracked and did a pretty good job. I think this horse kind of fits with all the scratches and everything. Probably not a win candidate, but I think can hit the super of the try here.
Mr. T, which is what we call my son Thomas around the house, will be 30-1. After scratches, probably a little bit higher than that, a little bit worse than that. But Justin Bailey trains here. Mitch Merle, who rides a ton here, will get the mount. This one's largely been sprinting, has tried the 2 turns once in the Lexington. How do you make the case for this one?
I can't. He's coming off his career best buyer, if that's something to grab onto, but he's just simply not fast enough.
All right, Zinal will break from the 3. We see that name, Uberto Rispoli, here again. Jonathan Thomas trains. He keeps a string here at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. Generally has not had many this year. This one comes out of a maiden win here, though. And so very obviously he thought with this horse debuting in Maiden Special Weight Company, both at Santa Anita and then going to the turf at Churchill at the highest level, they thought they had something. This is an expensive horse, and so they're going to try to do that here. This is one that I'm interested in, especially at the price. What do you make of this one in this company?
Yeah, I have this horse probably 3rd or 4th in my handicapping here. I do like this horse coming out of a local maiden race here. Obviously won, sat off of what looked to be kind of a softish pace, and then was able to win by an open length. They actually kind of adjusted the figure a little bit on it because it was there was a lot of first-time starters in there, but the actual raw time and raw figure looks pretty good. This looks like a horse that's basically improved the last 2 dirt starts here. Obviously, they tried this horse at Santa Anita first, right, for a big price, and they tried the turf, came back here on the dirt, seemed to like the dirt. Fernando de la Cruz sees fit to ride here. I think he's kind of a little bit of a wild card here, and I think one of the prices I'm going to use underneath.
So now I know you like this horse second in your handicapping.
Yeah, I think this horse has tremendous upside. They really know they have a talented horse here because they tried the turf thinking that this horse might take to it in a really tough spot. Figured out that wasn't the case, came here, ran on the dirt, ran well. I think there's a lot of upside here. I'm hoping that we'll get a little bit higher than that 12-1.
Okay.
And get this one in, for second or third.
So now son of Quality Road, Augustine Stable in the ownership group there. Umberto Rispoli, as I mentioned, last year's Preakness and Haskell winner will have the mount there. Our money man, currently the morning line favorite. Brett Calhoun trains here. Axel Concepcion, Mr. Money, obviously. The Louisiana bred here, 1 of 2 in this race. Our money man, a lot of people on this horse here. What do you make of his chances tonight?
I think he's the horse to beat. His races this year have been very, very good, much improved. I know the first one on January 3rd was not so great, but they laid that horse off a little bit, came back running. Hasn't run a bad race since, was in the Matt win, which was kind of over his head, and he overachieved. Gets into a softer spot here, gets a better setup. The 6, 7, and 8 all have speed. Hopefully they can go out and get a fair pace for our money man to run into. Hopefully the price isn't too low, but I'm thinking around 2-1-ish, but I think they're solid.
I think our money man has a real shot at being the favorite here, Josh, or at least right amongst the favorites here. Also, your top play today in the Grade 3 Indiana Derby. What do you like about it?
Yeah, I mean, I love that effort in that win, right? This is a horse that finished second in there against much better horses, right? Was the best of the rest in that spot. And this is a horse that, like I said, I've talked about this. I like these horses that are taking step forwards, looking like they're getting progressively better. And that figure in that Matt win, I mean, it looks great compared to everything else in this spot.
Yep.
There's a horse later that I think we're going to talk about. It's going to take a lot of money and probably going to vie for favoritism with our money man, but our money man is my top pick. And you know what? I didn't think that at the Indiana Derby, my top 2 picks would be Louisiana breds.
Creole Chrome will break from the 6. He's a Louisiana bred. Joe Sharp, of course, we mentioned him, having won the training title at Churchill Downs here during the Derby meet, spring meet, whatever you want to call it. But, of course, this is one that we last saw at Evangeline Downs. And when you are down there and you're in a black type, you can run on Lasix. Now, this one has been off of Lasix a couple of times in graded company. One of them was in a grade 1. And that was the Bluegrass. Barry and I were there that day. And I will give this horse a pass because if you see the 14 legs, really this horse lost to Otinho by 2.5 is really what that was, right? Something like that. I will think of it in a very different way because if you want to do the further ado thing, when that horse is running his race, not a lot of 3-year-olds that are going to be able to compete with him. What do you make of Creole Chrome in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I love those 2 races. And then he went to Evangeline Downs and just took care of business. Obviously, much softer group, but I've talked about this before. We see these horses shipped to Kentucky from Louisiana. Those horses are fast. They can break out of the gate. I mean, I think Junior Alvarado is going to get this horse to just break out the gate. It's going to be the speed to the speed play, catch me if you can. Now, there is other speed signed on, but, you know, if only one other horse goes and you get a speed duel, that's not necessarily a speed meltdown, so maybe the pace will still hold. Interested to see the price, but I'll take that 6-1.
Barry, you have this horse third in your handicapping. What is a fair win price on this horse by the time we get to the game? Is 6-1 fair?
Yeah, I think the morning line is fair.
Okay.
Morning line or
4-1 or better?
Yeah.
5-1 or better?
No, I'd say 9-2 or better.
Okay,
It's
okay.
Probably because they're going to catch some action.
Oh, I agree.
Based on connections and,
Sure.
and how they're running it at this point. But this race is a little murky on how the pacing there is going to end up, because there's a situation where the 6 horse gets out and goes and nobody goes with it. And that could be dangerous, because this horse is super fast, and if they let him go unopposed, they're going to have a hard time getting past this horse, especially the way, again, they're grooming the track. I think it's going to be very, very speedy. This horse, loose lead, will be very tough.
I do not like this horse in this spot, so go ahead and bet the crap out of this horse. The 7 is Out of the Woods, who I do like in this spot for Phil D'Amato. Second in the Delaware Derby. Barry, you do not like this horse in this spot. Why?
I just think this horse hasn't really run all that good. Broke the maiden with a nice number. Came back in a first level optional claimer. Ran good that day. Stretched out at Delaware and didn't get it done. I'm not sure what kind of class this horse has at this point. It surely can step it up. I mean, obviously this horse has the talent to win a race like this. Whether they can put all the pieces together today, I'm not sure. Just because the post position is bad, they're in between two sort of speed horses. They're going to have to kind of circle them. It might be a tough trip.
Tough one here in your mind. Phil D'Amato brings us 3-year-old Gelded Son of Constitution here for this one. I love the Saez angle here because I think he's going to give him a very similar chance that Johnny V did when he had the last couple of mounts. I think he answered the Lasix question last time. Probably a little bit of getting used to not being on Lasix and going the mile in the 16th should be a good opportunity here.
Yeah, second time off Lasix. I really like that. And, you know, if you kind of look at the last race, you got a little bit of a baby Z pattern there, right, where the horse broke out well, had a couple horses kind of passing him, and then he tried to make a move there, and you know, ended up being second best in that race. But, yeah, I just think that the last 3 races have just shown some improvement here. And, you know, we were talking about this, you know, with these late season derbies or mid to late season derbies, like you get these horses that come out that maybe necessarily weren't on the derby trail and are just late bloomers. And I think that they might be the case here for Out of the Woods.
Interesting to watch. Brad Cox's other entry in this race is Leading Change. Comes out of a win at 7 furlongs on debut at Churchill Downs, highest level of maiden special there. Barry, you and I went through this last night, and the second and third place finishers in this race will run 3 hours before the Indiana Derby together in a maiden race at Ellis Park. So you and I are going to be watching that one to see how that goes, because if either of them shows up, they're going to be ready to go. This one worked really well in the mud recently at Churchill Downs. Is my top selection in here. I'm thinking back to previous versions of this race where we got winners like Actuator coming out of 7 furlong kinds of races. That was a Michael McCarthy trainee, but I've seen it before, and I think we'll see it again here today, guys. So I will go ahead. I will put Leading Change on top. I think this is one of the reasons I read stuff around was for this horse today. Barry, you're going to try to play against. Is this simply too much too soon for this horse? Is it a value play against? Why are you playing against Leading Change today?
I think the pace is interesting enough because I don't think they really want the lead here, but Irad has to get position. And in doing so, he might get hung out wide around that first turn, and that might make all the difference to the horse without a lot of experience.
Yep.
That's usually where that kind of thing comes into play, is them doing it a couple of times, and they understand how to run, and they can overcome a little bit of wideness. It's a little bit difficult when they're younger. You know, this is the horse's second time out. I'm not going to be as forgiving, although the connections are pointing towards this race, and I'm sure they were probably doing a rain dance. And they might get it. But I just think it might be, like you said, a little bit too soon for this.
Yeah, I think that would be the argument would be a little too soon. Or, hey, trying something for the first time that we haven't seen before. Running against horses, frankly, in here that make a lot of sense as well. You're going to try to play against. Is it more of a value or more of a a combination of things.
I'm expecting this horse to take all the money. I think this horse is going to be 9-5, 2-1.
Whoa.
I was thinking.
Okay,
I was
wow.
thinking that this horse was going to take a ton of money. But I think fair value on this horse is probably close to 3-1.
Sure.
So I mean, if you end up getting that, like I don't hate it, but I just think that this horse is going to be much shorter than that. And you know what? I'm really glad that our friend Barry is feeling a little bit better. He's back in the no chalk zone. Right.
Yeah, the beginning of this show was very uncomfortable. I'm with you. It was not good. Yeah. No,
you know what? I'm glad we don't have the mind of
At the night
Spears
sweats
because I did not want to be in the mind of Spears at the beginning of this show. That was just
you don't want it anytime, but yeah. Let's go ahead, guys. We'll give our picks. So both of those guys on Mr. Moneyman here, the 4-horse. I'll be on the 8-horse here in leading change. Closer on the card is the State Bred Mate Special Weight, and it is a doozy.
Yeah.
No scratches in this one, and I forgot to make it into a ticker, so please bear with me as I make this a ticker instead of a big old thing on the bottom there. We'll move on to race 13. The closer on the card. We're on the turf for this one. 8.5 is the distance for this one as well. Indiana Breds, Fillies and Mares, 3 and up in this one. Quick picks here, guys. I laid it on the 9 on top here. I'll just go ahead and go first. Hotline Iris will be the favorite almost certainly for Rodney Proskett.
This guy was talking about me picking chalk. Whoa.
I picked a 5-1 horse in the last race. You picked a 4-1 horse. Okay.
This one.
Yeah, you go chalk to start this conversation, and now you're all high and mighty about it. Oh, that was 3 races ago. Okay, got it.
I'll see you at the window.
Hotline Iris, though. Yeah, because I'll be cashing. Daughter of a Dialed In here looked really good last time. Just ran out of gas. This is second off the layoff here. I expect a much better effort here. Josh, you went to the 3-horse in here on top for you. That horse's name is Coger Lane. I agree with you, by the West. Aaron West, Mitch Merle hook up quite a bit here at Horseshoe.
Yeah, and I mean, if you just look at the trainer stats for this horse, I mean, this looks like a horse. This looks like a move that Aaron West is very good at. First on the turf, 19% for a $3.88 ROI. Dirt to turf, 23% with a $3.01 ROI. Sprint to route, 32%. I mean, you could just list everything. I think this is a trainer move. 8-1 in the morning line. I'll go ahead and I'll take a shot with this one.
I have that 8 in my handicapping as well. Barry, you're going to try the rail here. Uncle's Lil Trophy. Not to be confused with like Lil Yachty or something like that, but Uncle's Lil Trophy here. Tried the slop last time, is going to try the turf for the first time here.
Yeah, I'm going to throw one downfield in this last race. I think this horse is, both those races, in comparison to everyone else's, have been pretty good. And the service switch makes a lot of sense here. I don't really like the rail draw, but I do like the value in the price. This horse is probably going to be around 10-1. I think they're going to get into the race early. Tim Eggleston does good work, and hopefully he can steal one in the last race.
All right, that'll wrap it up for us here. Your most likely winner on the card, if either of you have that off the top of your head, I'm going to go, I think it's in the Oaks. I think it's Prom Queen. I know that's lazy, but I do think she's the most likely winner on this card. Barry, who do you think it is?
Too much Kiki.
Too much Kiki earlier in that
We're
sequence.
going head-to-head in that race because I'm going to take the 11 in that race.
Okay, Kapoor.
Kapoor, yeah.
All right, there you go. All right, should be fun. Barry and I will be on the simulcast for race 3 as well, so check us out right after race 2 for a preview of that maiden special event as well. He's Barry. He's Josh. My name's Louie. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here on the Horse Racing Happy Hours preview of the Indiana Derby. And just a moment of sentimentality for me. I think this is our 5th Derby that they've had us up here for. This place took a shot on the Horse Racing Happy Hour before anybody did. And now look where we are. We're flying in Barry Spears from Orlando. So there you go. For Josh and Barry, my name's Louie Remote. Thanks for hanging out with us. Good luck today at Horseshoe Indianapolis.